covered referencing and citation skills. I know that we've actually done this in previous weeks. Effectively, this week is the last in a cycle of looking at referencing skills. As far as I'm concerned, referencing is one skill that you'll use throughout your academic career. Better to get it right now, and certainly better to get it right before you start doing undergrad work, where these things matter in terms of your grades, etc. Please excuse any repetition. This is not intentional. It's more about reinforcement, or at least that's the way I'd like to see it. What I should say, however, is that I won't be labouring over too many points. I'm hoping that previous week's work that we've done has at least revealed to you some of the intricacies and some of the basics of referencing. And from there, I guess this is the culmination of that particular process. At its most basic, referencing is simply a system to acknowledge the sources of information you use, and as I've said many times in these recordings, to me, acknowledging your sources. In other words, where you get your ideas from, where you get quotes from, etc. It's always worth tipping your hat in acknowledgement to the people who've done a lot of work often to achieve those particular ends, or those particular ideas or theories, etc. And I think it's a miss not to acknowledge those people who do that. Probably more serious than that, obviously, if you're not actually referencing your sources, then you'll be committing plagiarism, which again is seen to be quite a serious offence in university, and rightly so. I think you should be obviously prepared to acknowledge your sources, but also not seen to be cheating. In other words, stealing work, because effectively that's what it is. And for me, this is quite important. The most obvious question in relation to this topic is, when do we reference? And at its most simple, as I've indicated on slide 4 of the PowerPoint this week, that whenever we quote, we paraphrase or summarise someone else's ideas, their theories or their data, we have to reference them. If you've got any graphical material or images, etc., you have to also record those, or I should say reference those. Now, the main rule of thumb here is if it's something is seen to be as general information or general knowledge, generally you don't have to reference it, but as soon as it becomes specific, so someone has developed an idea or a theory, etc., or produced data about a particular thing, or produced research, etc., and it becomes specific, then that person has to be referenced. Now, obviously, the most common things that we reference are books, or chapters in books, journals, newspaper articles, conference papers, as the case may be in university, but also things like films or television programs, for instance, documentaries, for instance. The latter is not something we often think about, but in certain instances, particularly if you're doing media studies, for instance, referencing excerpts or even whole shows on television, or even at the films, for instance, in the cinema, for instance, then we have to reference those. Other sources may include things like personal communications, like emails, interviews or letters, electronic sources such as web pages, journal articles, etc., and even databases. And I've indicated this on slide 6, but there's a huge swathe of other things that you may have to reference depending on the work you're actually doing. Moving to the actual process of referencing, so in other words, the mechanics of it, first I want to briefly, and I mean briefly, look at what we do within the text, so in-text citations, etc. And then the next bit I want to look at is the end of text, so the reference list itself. Now, I don't want to labour these things too much. I already produced a very short PowerPoint that you've seen earlier on in the course, so I'm hoping that most people are fairly comfortable with these ideas. However, let's move to it. Within text, essentially what you have to do is set up a signpost for the reference list at the back. Now, this signpost is useless without the reference list, because all you're putting in is literally the name of an author or authors, depending on how many people have written it or credited to have written it, the year of publication, and the page number. And you don't always have to include the page number if you're actually talking about the book as a whole. But if it's a specific thing or a topic within a book, then you have to talk about the page, or at least give the page number, I should say. Now, by itself, if I just have an author's name, and it's always the surname, and a year, that tells me very little about where I can find that reference. useless in terms of attempting to track that reference down, which is why the reference list is so important. So essentially an in-text reference is a signpost that takes you to the proper reference, the whole reference, at the actual end of the work, which means, in this case for me, if I was marking a work and wanted to check a reference, I'd go to the reference section, I could get the full details for that particular source, and track it down if I had to. And the reason I might track it down is if, on the one hand, the work that is being quoted or used is being misrepresented in some way or manipulated in some way, or that I simply want to check mechanically that someone has actually looked at a source and used it correctly. At the end of the text, in other words, your list of references or a bibliography, and I've talked about the differences between those in the past, you have to have the full name. When I say the full name, I mean the surname with the initials, the year date, obviously the title and the subtitle if there is one, the publisher, and where it was published. So you need all of those details, particularly say for instance for books. With that particular arrangement, you should follow standard sort of convention within a particular system. In this case I'm talking about the Harvard system, and I have done throughout this course. There's certain conventions in the use and the means of creating an end list of references. You should follow those, you should be consistent, you should be precise, and I've said that elsewhere, and use essentially the same format right throughout the entire body of your assessment. For the bulk of the rest of the PowerPoint, beyond my very brief overview of these two, what I consider to be the most important aspects of referencing, you'll find examples. Now, I'd hope that you'll read through those. I don't think I really need to explain them. I think they're fairly straightforward. The thing that I would say, and I've said this elsewhere, is I would print off Harvard Guide from UTAS, and I've given you a link on slide number 32. Also, maybe think about just having a look at some of the variations in referencing styles. If nothing else, not to necessarily rehearse them or understand them in any great degree, but maybe just look at some of the conventions that occur in other referencing systems. At the end of the PowerPoint, I have a practice session, which is through Northampton Library. And to me, like I said, this is very important. There's a guide that I've put on Milo to give you an idea, at least an introduction into it. I suggest you have a look at it and attempt it. Anyway, I said this would be brief, and it is. I think perhaps that's the best way to conduct a lot of these lectures. Your time is short, as is mine. And I believe, like I said, a lot of the material that I've put on there is fairly self-evident. And if it's not, I hope that you all feel comfortable in contacting the distance tutor, or even me directly. I'm happy to explain these things. What I would say overall about referencing is that it's such an important and basic function in academic work that the sooner you understand it and can apply it and make it a habit, the easier it is longer term. Because trust me, these are the kind of things that I wouldn't say a lesser aspect of academic work or an easier aspect, but certainly a functional one. And from my perspective, it's one that that most students should be able to habituate in some form or other. Anyway, the other thing I'd like to say, just in closing, is that given that we have effectively 2 to 3 weeks left to get this assignment in, depending on when you start the assignment, and this is you rather than me, that I would hope that most people are some way into maybe 2 to 3 of the sources that are to be used in your third and final assignment. I would suggest that you crack on with it. The only reason being is that, as I've said to other students and from my experience of semester 2 last year, that it's a fairly arduous process. It can be a little bit cumbersome at times, and certainly by source 5 or 6, most people are kind of fairly over the process. They find it quite difficult to get motivated and continue. I'm hoping, like I said, if you start early, you can have breaks or gaps where you can feel more comfortable about continuing. space of two to 3 days, I think this would be really quite a chore. But if it's spread out